Okay, I guess I have sound now. I don't know what's going on. I use Crisp to try to filter the input and output for that matter. And for some reason, it's muting everything. So I'm just going to use the microphone device directly. And that'll make some sound. So you haven't heard a darn thing I've said for the last 15 minutes, 10 minutes. So anyway, I'm in the middle of looking at this PR. Thank you very much, Mundo de Hads, something like that. Or Mundo de Hads, not exactly sure. Thank you very much for bringing that to my attention. That's very kind of you. I was going to have wasted my entire stream talking to nobody. I appreciate you. Okay, so we're looking through this branch. How's it going now? Maybe the builders will have gotten further along. Ubuntu is in good shape. macOS is still queued. FreeBSD is in good shape. That's good news. And Solaris is the one I'm really worried about. So let's see what can happen. In the meantime, here was the first change. This is almost everything I needed to do for Ubuntu. I took this stanza where we're checking to see if it's a Mac, and otherwise it's Ubuntu, because that's how this file works. If it's a Mac, you can brew install the check library for tests, and that's new enough, because Homebrew is maintained by people who are alive, I guess. It's the difference maker. Otherwise, otherwise, we must be on Ubuntu based on how the matrix in this YAML file works, and so we can just assume that we can do an apt-get install. And that used to be fine when the version of check that Ubuntu ships was new enough, but it's not. So I broke this up into a multi-line entry, and the first part is the same. If it's a Mac, still do a brew install. Else, this is the hack I came up with yesterday, and I'm keeping it for now, which is the version of Ubuntu that is in the autobuilders for GitHub does not have a new enough check. And I did this thing, which should not rightly be expected to work, but it seems to in this case, which is I put a newer version of Ubuntu's package repository into my sources list. Newer than the version of Ubuntu I'm running. So presumably that newer Ubuntu has a newer kernel, maybe a newer libc. I don't know how they version libc in Linux, but I cannot reasonably count on that to work, but it was worth a shot, and it did work. With the exception that I needed sudo on these. So simply by putting a newer package repository into my list and doing an update and then installing check, then I got a version that's new enough. In conjunction with this commit, where I put back the sudos that I lost. And that made it go. So that's enough for Ubuntu. And then what we learned about Solaris yesterday that made it work is a few things. One is that, there are no official Solaris builders for GitHub Actions, but if you use a macOS host for GitHub Actions that turns out to have the right macOS version, at least, not all of them have this, but one of them does, at least, has VirtualBox installed on the macOS host. And that means if you go to some trouble, you can run anything inside of VirtualBox on that host. And so it turns out there is a provider, VM Actions Solaris VM. We were running 0.0.2. And so I thought, well, maybe updating that will fix the problem that I can't find VBox manage. But that's not a problem of the builder, that's a problem of the host. And so the other thing I noticed in looking at the upstreams at this VM Actions README is that they changed their example from macOS latest to macOS this particular not latest version. And so I did that too, and that made it find VBox Manage again, which is the program that makes a virtual machine. Got to have it. So that was part of it. You'll get a hint of what else I had to do from the change of names of these builds. This doesn't do anything, it just signifies anything that a name could signify. And I want to signify, I made the builds explicitly 64-bit everywhere that I could. So that starts with building notqmail itself, where we had been taking whatever the default ABI was here and changing it explicitly to -M64 here and here. And I forget what error I got when I didn't change the R command and to add a capital S, but it didn't work, and now it does, and at least that's explicit. we might want to consider factoring that into our build so that somebody on Solaris can build 32 or 64-bit. But right now we're just trying to fix the Solaris build, period. Then we can optimize. So one thing I did is make it explicitly 64-bit. And the other thing I did is, again, we needed a newer version of the check library. There is a version in the Solaris package repository, but it's old, and our PR needed newer versions. So again, I made this into a multi-line, and I kept GCC4 in package config. I got rid of libcheck, because it's not going to be a good enough one. Replaced it with curl that I can use to fetch something newer. And so we go and fetch the currently newest version of check. We do what you would do if you're building by hand. Extract it, or decompress it, extract the archive, CD into there, and build it to a particular prefix so that it's in the same path as everything else on Solaris by default, and then build it into there. And make sure that you build it 64-bit, because we're going to have to link with this from our notqmail code. And that was enough to get the Solaris build working again. It is really slow. The other thing we needed to do for Solaris that I noticed so far, we had a little issue open on it, that at some point we added a make-C, which is really the same thing as cd into the argument to -C and run the same make command in there. Solaris's make doesn't support this, but it can cd into a directory and run a submake explicitly. So I have a commit that simply re-expresses it that way. So this would not work on Solaris with Solaris's make, but this is exactly equivalent and does. And likewise for this and this. So that's part of my PR as well. Since I'm just worried about builds, I figured it could fit. So how are we doing at this point? Let's take a look. Those Solaris builds can really take a while. Can I get to my checks? Ubuntu is finished. macOS is still queued. Let's head over there. The agent pool assigned to this job has hit their macOS concurrency limits. Gosh darn it. So that's going to hold the Solaris builds as well, because they run as virtual machines on macOS hosts. Grr. Okay, so we may have to wait a little while on this one. While we do that, I might as well rebase this, since I discovered this. So let's do that. I'll do a little rebase. And then what we want to come to as actually a new intentional commit, once this is working across all the platforms the way I hope it will, then I will want to take what we learned for the Solaris auto build, where I have to do these manual compilation steps, fetch and compile steps. I would like to sort of cache that as a built artifact, so that if I already have a built version of check like this that I have cached using GitHub Actions cache dependencies and build outputs thing, then I shouldn't have to rebuild it. Lord knows the Solaris auto build takes long enough to just get the machine running. It would be really nice if I could just take the built check and run with it and go. It's not going to change. Our code is going to change, but check is not going to change. And so if we can cache it, that's great. I haven't done that yet because I don't want to add caching to something that doesn't work yet. So I want to make sure it works first and then see about caching. But I guess as long as we're waiting for auto builders, we could do a rebase and get a fresh start. So let's do that. Pop over into here. You can see on the left-hand side, those are my commits. I did this, I did this, I did this, and I did this. And what I would like to do is get interactive, but that's not the right way. Against master, that's the right way. I want to take the sudo change, which was about Ubuntu, put it there, and merge it into the previous one. Leave out the commit message. Never happened. Just have it do that to Ubuntu in the first place. And let's see if I did it right. Using my lovely tig command. If you don't know about tig, check out tig. It's awesome. So let's see. Yeah, it looks like my Ubuntu commit had sudo in the first place. So now what we do, this is one of those cases where you do a force push, because I changed the commit history on a branch that nobody else has and shouldn't have. So it's very okay for me to say, replace what's on GitHub with what I have now. And hopefully that gets the auto builders to think about this freshly. At this point, I should have 3 commits. There they are. And we are working on our checks. Very fine. Yada, yada, yada. Let's head on over and see if it's... Oy vey. Okay. This might be pretty tedious to wait for. If it's not even going to start building these VMs yet for a while, then I might want to get onto something else to stream for you. I guess what we can do while we wait, that would be on topic, is to try to learn more about this GitHub Actions cache. Maybe we can see how we will want to use it and have that ready by the time we can. Of course, if you're watching and you know about this already, I would love to hear from you. I'll take any help I can get. But this was recommended to me by a fellow notqmail developer, and I agree. If we can cache that built artifact of the thing that we're building that isn't our own source code in order to build our own source code, I would like to cache it. So the documentation looks like it's here. Changelog doesn't mean a lot to me at this point because I don't know how this stuff works. You make a workflow YAML. Okay, I know a thing or two about that. There's an example one. I'll find it in a moment. Here we go. So you're going to say a path, a list of files, directories, and wildcards to cache and restore. You can use a glob. I will want that. So glob. And then a key for restoring and saving the cache. Is that a key to the cache itself or a key to the item that I'm caching right now? I assume that one. Restore keys is a list of keys, but that makes it unclear to me. Cache hit is a Boolean if it found something for what I'm giving it. And here's how you skip steps if you hit the cache. Okay. The cache is scoped to the key and branch. Okay. With the exception that the cache on your default branch can be used by other branches, so that helps a bit. I was going to say for the first sentence, this is going to reduce the effectiveness of this cache quite a lot. Every time you make a new PR, it's going to rebuild check. But if we can manage to get a build of check on the master branch, or what we'll probably call the main branch pretty soon, then it will be available on new branches if we use the cache correctly. Okay. Example, caching primes. So this is just some shell, which is good and readable for me. I'm happy with that. We are going to use actions cache. And these are those parameters it was telling us about, prime numbers, and whichever OS we're running, primes. So Ubuntu latest primes or what have you. To generate the prime numbers, first we check if there's a cache hit according to, I guess, just the existence of this file. Okay, that's a pretty basic use case. It might be enough for me. If there's not a cache hit, then we got to make the primes. And that's generate them, whatever that means. And then there's a use prime numbers, which I assume finds them there. Yeah, this is that path. Put them in there, use them from there. Okay. So there's lots of examples for using this. That example was pretty straightforward for me. Shell script is actually kind of what I want. I don't really need a C implementation of this. Skipping steps based on cache hit. Okay. Yeah, I think all I really need to do is in my prepare step, before I go fetching a tarball, see if I have the cached files that I already want. Where does it keep them? Where is the cache stored? It's got to be off the build host. Otherwise it won't do any good. So actions glob, this is how we can look for globs, and this was the bigger piece of documentation. How is our auto build going? Presumably no further. Yeah, still waiting for macOS. That sucks. I guess we're getting what we pay for. At some point we should probably have our own auto build infrastructure for notqmail, but that point is not yet. Caching dependencies to speed up workflows. Create and use caches for dependencies and other commonly reused files. I like that. So jobs run on a clean virtual environment and must download dependencies each time. To speed it up, GitHub can cache them. Need to use the cache action. Don't store any sensitive information in the cache, of course. Artifacts and caching are similar. Caching is when you want to reuse files that don't change often. In other words, not our code, a dependency. Use artifacts when you want to save files produced by a job, which would presumably be our own code that we do care about. So I don't want artifacts. I hadn't heard of that either in GitHub, just generally, but it makes sense to have that, and it makes sense that this is something else and that I want something else. Restrictions for accessing a cache. Okay. So I can access a cache from a cache made in the current branch or the base branch or the default branch. That's handy. That will work for me. Provide a key. Restore the files to the path. Okay. So my job is to say which files those are. In other words, when I have built the check library into the Solaris path, which files have I added there? And that is a tedious thing to figure out, especially if it's going to take infinitely long to run the next GitHub action on Solaris. But I have a head start on knowing what those files are, and I have an alternate route to produce that file list. So let's do that. I can do that now. So one quick guess at what those files would be is if I look at package source, which I know a lot more about the build process, and say, I installed the check library on my Mac. What files did it install? And it's these. So this isn't exactly the same as what will end up on Solaris, but it's going to be really similar. And I can even do the same thing here if I installed check that way. I didn't. I could try. Let's try. So I'm on a Solaris virtual machine, Solaris 11 x86. And if I go into devel check, I might have a chance. Let's see if we can get it built. This is using the SunPro compiler, and we're lucky that there aren't any dependencies that aren't needed that I don't have yet, because more often than not, those don't build. Solaris is not a widely used operating system anymore, and so we're package source, even though it can run, many packages are not well building on Solaris. So I can make it a hobby of mine to fix them as I need them, and if this doesn't quite work, then I will. But so far, so good. It didn't blow up early like we're using some newer version of C that it doesn't understand, we have a chance. And this particular software has probably been built on a wide variety of systems because it's supposed to be used with like any C code base. That's why we have it. So far, so good. So this, I mean, if this works, this also will not give me the definitive answer of what was installed when I built from source by hand in the GitHub environment. But it'll give me a really good guess. And it might even be a good enough guess that even if it's not exactly right, it's enough to cache the things that I need in order to run. So let's go for it. I'm going to install. Boom. And now I will have a very similar but slightly different list to what was on the Mac. So we have check.h, checkstandardin.h. Yep. We have the libtool archive, a static library, and then a shared object with different symlinks for the versions. We have a libtool archive, a static archive, and then dilibs for the versions on the Mac. A package config file, very good. A checkmk man page. Something you can throw into your own autoconf if you're doing that for your build. Okay, so this is remarkably similar. Now we have it on a Solaris. So this is a good first order approximation of what I will get in the GitHub Actions Solaris environment when I have built check from source. It's a good first order approximation. And I know that because I'm the package maintainer for this package. And I know that it doesn't do much special. So other than, say, like the prefix, there's not much else that should be needed. Let me just take a quick detour. Now that I have it installed, I should be able to go into my notqmail tree. And how does it work with pkg? I want to see if I have a check installed already. I think I do. List. Whew. Okay. There's probably some way to do this more directly. Yeah, there it is. It's an old version, 0.11. Okay, so I think I want to uninstall. Let's be clear and do it that way. So this is removing the native Solaris package for this old version of check, 0.11.0. And I imagine that's about done. And then I know if my notqmail builds on Solaris and passes tests, it must be using the one that I installed. So off we go. BT dubs, what branch am I on? Okay, good. Whee! So this is what the notqmail build looks like on Solaris. And then make test, which could almost work. Didn't quite work because this is something I had to take care of in the auto build, and maybe I should take care of here. The library I installed from package source is a 64-bit library, and I think I just made that mistake again. And a program that I would try to link with it, for example, unit test stralic.o is a 32-bit object. So I guess, I mean, I don't know really well what Solaris administrators are expected to do here, but I guess it's my job to do something like this. Oh, I even have an M32 here? Is that right? Hold up. Do I have local changes? Oh, Okay. Cool demo. Yeah, so I guess let's find out if there's even any problem here. Let's just bring those back to an uninteresting state. And now it's going to have to rebuild everything. Again, this is cool. This is good. Because it means that the C compiler and the linker flags are first order dependencies of the built objects, which is true. Because you can change the flags and you should expect to get a different object. Most build systems separate sort of the configure step from the make step. And then if you change your compiler flags, you have to know to rebuild everything. This make file knows, and I like that about it. So now if I say make test, it should be able to come on now. Okay, so so I guess the default ABI is really 32-bit. And it is really the case that an administrator would have to do this. Explicitly go M64. So let's rebuild again. While we're waiting for that, any chance that something moved here? No. Try requesting additional runners. F that in the B. Now what's going on? Undefined symbol M count. I don't much care for this result. Let's look at how these tests are trying to be built. Okay, so things, I guess it's probably failing here. So let's look at what we get for package config libs check. Yeah, that looks about right. And includes. Oop, maybe just include. What did I just miss? C flags. Yeah, those are the right places. Op package lib. Okay, and Stralic.a is an R archive. Still 64-bit. Okay, there's one other thing I noticed from my auto build that I should probably steal. Now let's just do a make clean while we're here. And that was workflows, Solaris. I did something down here that I commented on earlier. Make lib needs a capital S in there if I'm building 64-bit. Right there. Let's see if this is what that's about. I certainly don't remember, but let's see if this is what it's about. No, that did not do any good. What is up? What's happening here? Type package config. It's the package source one. So who's supposed to define M count? It comes from unit test Stralic. Let's just look at the code. M count. No idea what that's about. Is that something that belongs to? we get any symbols? We do, and mcount is not one of them. Do I have ag? I don't. Grep mcount. Whoop. And some C files here, or header files here. What does it mean? Mcount. Man mcount. Wild guess. What did package config lib say? Okay, didn't say the math library, but I'm gonna take a wild guess and try adding the math library. No. That took effect and did not help. Why? Let's Google. Solaris mcount. Is it a Solaris thing? No, I don't want mount, I want mcount. That's what I said. Mcount. Oh yeah. Unresolved symbol mcount. Yes, did somebody help? This is really an old message. Related to coverage or profiling? Anybody make any progress? You're right. I had this and this, but not this. Is that the end? I certainly don't understand any of that. So this was not stripped, but it didn't contain an mcount. Any other matches? Let's narrow this down. If I do a package delete, this should fail even harder. Right. Good. So it was trying to use mylib_check. And it wasn't finding one. Yep. So that's good. I appreciate that. I couldn't find... These symbols, for the most part, do look like test runner things. Mcount, I don't know what it is. So let's put our package back. I have it in trees, package source CVS. Packages. Probably in here. Check. Okay, and now I should be able to get back to my original problem of where is mcount? Where is mcount? GCC undefined reference to mcount. gprof instrumentation is something building with debug info. Why? Is that why? Let's see if we can match that, and that helps. So we'll say with debug info and not stripped. Is that going to make a difference? I do not know my way around Solaris, or the Sun Pro compiler, or anything. That did 0 good. Absolutely 0. I mean, I should be able to say, oh, hold up. No, okay, that didn't change. I thought maybe the dependencies weren't as well expressed on the tests, but they use the same compile command. So when that changes, they should get rebuilt. Okay, so that didn't do it. This way I could narrow down. I was saying file on that, and I could say file on unit test stralog.o and hope that it's a similar type. 64-bit, least significant bit, relocatable, shared object, x86-64, version 1, Solaris, or System 5. Maybe that's different from shared objects to just objects. Dynamically linked doesn't apply. With debug info, not stripped, uses SSE2, not SSE. Is it an SSE thing? Whatever that is. This game is hard. I do not know how to win this game. Let's take this to Google. I'm willing to. Okay. Right, so when compiling with a PG option, undefined reference to M count, what's wrong? Compiling and linking with it? No, I'm doing neither as far as I know. That is strange. What if I look at a different library? So libcheck says these things. Yeah, sure. Lib, I don't know. Bare SSL. And libcheck. With debug info not stripped, and I haven't had any trouble linking with that. Or lib scarnet. So with debug info not stripped. So it's nothing special about package source on that one package. But if we compare with user lib something, libz, sure. With debug info, oh, but it's the 32-bit one. I do not know what is going on here. There's this 32-bit, 64-bit business. That's definitely something. But I'm consistently 64-bit with all my package source installations and with what I'm building here. What have I done locally? I'm saying M64 and debug symbols, don't strip them, and M64, and whatever this S was. What was this S? Force the use of the 64-bit symbol table format. That's why. Well, this is not super enjoyable for me. I can't imagine it's super enjoyable for anybody else. mcount is in MIPS options, x86 options. What? Profiling tools, mcount. Hello, yes. What did we do about this? Using prof to generate a program profile. So who did this? It wasn't me. That's the only occurrence of mcount. Any chance we got further, please? What? We did. macOS built? Okay. Let's think about something else. Squirrel. Let's look at what's going on with our Solaris auto builds that finally started. It's happening. It's building. So it built, check, and now it's doing whatever package updates it has to do. I didn't program this. This is what the GitHub action that I'm using does. So I gotta wait for that, but it's going. And if I saw correctly, the other checks are all happy. Ubuntu, macOS, FreeBSD. Okay, so it's really just, did I get the Solaris changes right for the auto build? That's good. I'm interested to know. We'll wait for that a little longer, and I guess I'll go back to thinking about this thing that sucks. Use the P option to the compiler. Use this compiler command. -P. Curious. So the thing that's doing the compiling, oops, I swear I can type sometimes. I don't see a -P. It's saying it would have created that just adds instrumentation to the thing that it built. So it's really just this P option. Let's say I add that. I think that's what they were saying. Maybe the link or two. Got me. Let's see what this builds. Sure. What? That helped. For reasons not understood. Why? Tests, unit test, Straloc, all of them. I just want to know everything. LSB executable, it was able to make one. Not stripped, use SSE2. Why did it need that? Okay, the experiment continues, looking for something resembling cause and effect. Let's say I remove the G. Lord knows what's going on here. We'll come back. Still getting our machine set up. And that worked fine. It really just needed the P. Okay, how about if I don't link anything specially with it? I don't understand. Okay, that wasn't fine. What if I do link with P, but also put back the strip? Fine, okay. One more thing I can futz with at least is just the linker, not the compiler. Also fine. Okay, and then I guess there's the hypothesis that that I've added that S. What if I don't? I'm just trying to get to the minimal change that fixes the build on my system. And that seems like something. So I have to add profiling in conf LD. I do not know why. I don't think I see that in this Solaris build. Curious. Okay, so I have a build, I have test passing, and the way that I do that is I specify M64 and -P when I'm linking, and that's it. Is there anything else we have as an open issue? There was this one. What was it about? Solaris makefile syntax issue? So we collapsed what had historically been a bunch of individual makefile rules for individual manual pages and turned them into suffix rules, as you can see here, like so. And it's unclear what wasn't working here. Does it say? Any better way to debug it? Doesn't seem to like the previous layout of the makefile. What doesn't work? As far as I can tell, we did build in man pages. Let's look at the makefile. Before we do that, did you notice, I did, that when I try to edit something, it says failed to find executable tmux? I'm tired of that. I don't know why it needs tmux, but I do know how to get it, hopefully. Assuming all these things build on Solaris. Let's take a hopeful swing at it. Okay. Oh gosh. I don't feel good about this. That's a lot of things to build. Yeah. Okay, I'll have to sort that out later. I don't have tmux because I don't have all of the dependencies building on Solaris. Another option, I suppose, could be sudo package install tmux and get it from the Solaris repository just to make this go away. Happy enough with that for now, if it's an option. Good. I'll take it. Okay, and so now, yeah, that was good enough. Whatever my Vim plugin that's looking for tmux needs. Found it. Okay, and I wanted to see if maybe the manual pages aren't building appropriately. Let's look at this the other way around. Code on the left and output on the right. I'm guessing, based on what was changed here, that it has to do with the ordering of these rules to make the manual pages. The manual pages, I should be able to make them all by saying make man. Oops, not man, make man. I am getting some errors. I see that. A lot of them. So back it up. Let's say I make addresses dot 1, addresses dot 5. Okay, make addresses dot 0, and it did that. Right, so we were really hoping those are really just using the suffix rules, and they should go through this, right? Which in turn, nroff you would hope would be defined. Can I say that this way? Looking for a way to see what the value of a variable currently is. Dash P, perhaps. Wow, okay. Yeah, so this says nothing interesting, but what about what nroff is defined to be? Yeah, okay. And what about we have these artifacts from our profiled build. So if I say make man, we're gonna get all of those. So what happens if I just say make qmail local.0? That was enough to get an error. And a surprising result, I think. Boy, let's just get a good look at it. That's enough to reproduce what is probably the problem. Qmail.local.0 is made from .8, which is right there, but you'll notice I was a little surprised by this. It didn't say nroff. I'm having a tough stream day today. My remote control is not working. It's waking up. Here we go. I thought this was going to say nroff, but it says man, and that is surprising to me. I thought we were going to hit this. Well, this. So what if I say echo Schmons was here, and then do that? Does that show up? It does. So we are going that way. And nroff is nroff. It's empty. Why? I do think I'm running user bin make. Let's make really sure. That's a wrapper script that should be choosing user bin make. Yeah, same. So it does look very much like it's doing this one and then this one, but differently. Let's just, I don't know, comment that out for a minute and see that it does nothing. So it really is that line. nroff is somehow empty for this suffix rule, despite our giving a default value. And nroff is empty, and it's just running man. Let's look at that make dash p, I think it was again, for our suffix rules. See if we have any more. No, just those. So we're not currently able to build the manual pages on Solaris. Let's come back and see how we're doing. Still installing stuff. So what exactly are we seeing? We're seeing nroff is blank, man without the dash. I'm really curious if that matters. The requirement of the target, the source of the target, and the target look like they're getting substituted. Okay, I guess my next question is, what if I say noodle? Is it gonna run a noodle command? Yeah, okay, that's still weird. Okay, why is a dash something you can say? Is that like a make qualifier thing? Yeah, okay. And if I say just explicitly nroff, that probably does work. Oops. Not well. If I say nroff dash man. That looks half decent. Okay. But it's not getting the value, of course, if I do it just that way, also presumably fine. Yeah. So it's just not getting the value of the nroff macro into this target. What if I say this and then put it back? Okay, and what if I make it an environment variable? Still okay. But if I don't specify, okay, and if I remove the question mark, wow. Okay. Let that roll around in my brain for a minute. What are we doing? Are we building something? We're building libcheck. It's happening. We are in my build instructions. Libcheck is getting installed. I'm going to do a notqmail build soon. I feel pretty good about this. We shall see. Okay, so one line change appears to be take off the question mark, but then it's hard to override. Okay. Alternatively, let's see if we can override it. So if it's an environment variable, I bet not. Right, so true didn't take effect. If I instead make that a make variable explicitly on the command line, I think I hypothesized that it will. Yeah. So if you pass it as a make argument, you can still override. Okay. Why? I don't know. Let's look. Do we have any more question mark equals in here? Just that one. Okay, and let's write down what I've understood. With Solaris make, I'm going to say with Solaris 11 make at least, question equals doesn't propagate the value to our suffix rules. Can still be overridden via make target. Not changing to prevents from overriding. But let's check it in that order. I can't imagine that matters to a make program, but let's say make man. Yeah, and let's get rid of my debug statement, but I think we succeeded. Feels good. How's our build going? We're building notqmail now. Good. So I have a diff here. I'm not going to commit that yet. I need to look at our other auto builds, and my own packaging for package source of notqmail, and maybe propose this as its own PR that changes all the places that we need it. Let's take a quick look. I think I need GNU grep, recursive, case insensitive for nroff. Okay, so it's just this make file, and let's say name YAML. Oh, this isn't find. Ha. Okay, so I'll just edit those files manually and make the changes that have to go with this if there are any. It's doing that as environment variables. But it needs to do it as build arguments. So for Solaris, this looks already okay. This is exactly how I was doing it, I think. And again, it's not as an environment variable, it's as a make argument. So that could be fine. And it's make flags, where we're only avoiding nroff on this one. Okay, so maybe that is all the change we need. I am curious if I pop up into trees, package source CVS, mail, qmail. This is my qmail package. What do I do about nroff? I do it in the make environment, so that would fail. So I would have to, on the next release of notqmail, I would have to change this to make args to avoid running nroff there. Okay, I'm tentatively okay with that. That's normal for a packager to have to deal with that kind of thing. So how's our build going? X did not pass. What happened? Test in Solaris. Oy vey. It's really long. Something somewhere didn't work. What was it? Seriously. Why are we not building with it anymore? This had worked. What did we build for libcheck? Take me back. This is still not qmail. For libcheck, should have gone into opt_csw lib. How did this not work? Check my configure arguments. Sheesh. Okay, where's my next invocation of curl? I do not know how to read this. Oh, okay. We fetched it here. So we're extracting it. We're running configure here. Okay. Trying to see why this wouldn't be found. It does look like it's trying to do 64. It's got the M64 in the build. Lots of noise in this build. I wish it weren't so, but okay. Okay, we're going to install it into opt csw lib, as we should. Because that path is already found by the system dynamic linker, documentation is getting installed. Includes. Okay, and we're building 64 again. So building notqmail itself. Not evidently having any trouble with the manual pages, but maybe we're using gmake somehow. Yeah, I built the manual pages fine in this build. Okay, so we're building Stralic C into Stralic. It was able to link that one. It was able to build unitest blast.o, and it was able to link that into a test. It was compiling prioq, and only when it tried to run the test, so it built all the tests, and only when trying to run them did it fail. For lack of the linked library. I don't like it. Takes such a long time to debug this too. Okay. I think it's about time for me to stop and take a break and do something else and come back to this later. I have to figure out, and will at some point, why the dynamic linking here is not working. The runtime linker cannot find the library. What I will probably do for that is throw in basically some echo statements into the YAML file. So I'll say, what is the output of package config libs? Check. Package config cflags? Check. I'm not really worried about the cflags because it compiles without warnings about that include. I am worried about the libs. because it looks like we didn't specify enough flags for the runtime linker. The compile time linker found what it needed. The runtime linker did not. So I'm really interested to know the output of this. Before I do that, I want to commit what I figured out about nroff, because I think that addresses this. So I'm going to put that in too. Let's come back to, where am I here? There, okay. And start writing a commit message. Basically what I already said. But first we need a 50 character summary. Make sure nroff is defined in define nroff unconditionally for suffix rules under Solaris make. That's probably too long. Mm, 50 would be about there. Is this how I? No. Define, always define nroff. So Solaris make closer. Let's do this. To work around Solaris make. Fine, and now I can say more. Make one, right? Yeah. And Solaris the suffix rules for generating man pages, pre-formatted man pages. Means the suffix rules are get and somehow get an empty value for nroff. Setting nroff equals instead fixes the suffix rule behavior Solaris make suffix rule behavior while remaining overridable via via arguments. Okay, I'll say format. Let's quote this a little bit. This change means anyone's build means but that's okay. Still does. Auto builds already do the ladder. I keep forgetting that's not there. Okay, that's a good commit message. That means I can remove everything else, leaving just this change. And commit it. There it is. And I'll push one more commit with some debug output. And then we'll end the stream there because it's going to take forever to run. So take me into here where I want to borrow something from a different branch. The branch where we figured this all out. Joe test qmail send jobs. Okay, and in this branch, I think I had those debug statements still in. Yeah, so I'm going to take them back. This was under prepare. It's cheap to put them all in, I guess I will. Path is path. Package config is that one. Why not? C flags is that. And that's the debug output that I have. Okay. You know what else I could do? Before I push, it's worth being a little thoughtful. I could throw in an LDD on this thing in that test. Isn't finding the check. And I want to do that in here too, when we're trying to run it. Is that going to be my path? Yeah. And how does it work? I think it's just going to be LDD tbin. Yeah. So that's going to show where I linked with something, or it's going to show that it's missing. Okay, so the last commit goes like this. Yeah. Whoop. Also inspect shared linkage for test bins. Okay. And that'll take forever to run. Whoops. Nuts. Why? Good branch. Yeah. Oh gosh. Did I do that on a different branch? I'm not enjoying this game. I think I did it in my shared one. Okay. We're going to copy those by hand here. That's easier. No, this is too complicated. I'm going to figure this out later. Sorry, this was a really rough stream. I'm really wrestling with some stuff. But that's going to be enough for today. Thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.